Hi, my name is Lilia Kudelia, and I'm the guest curator for the Young Visual Artists Award Program at Residency Unlimited in New York. I'm speaking today with Damir Sobota. Hi, Damir.
Hi.
On the occasion of his exhibition Sequence, staged at Residency Unlimited headquarters within the beautiful former South Congregational Church in Carroll Gardens in Brooklyn. This exhibition completes Damir's 2 months residency in New York, which he was offered as the winner of the 2020 Radoslav Putar Award that is given annually to artists in Croatia. Damir's residency in New York is made possible with support from the Trust for Mutual Understanding and through our ongoing partnership with the Artist Alliance studios, where Damir had a studio space during these past 8 weeks in the Lower East Side of New York. So I'm going to give you a brief bio before we dive in the conversation with Damir. I think we have visitors already.
Yeah, somebody's coming, but you can continue, don't worry.
Damir Sobota graduated with an MFA degree from the Academy of Fine Arts in Zagreb, Croatia in 2013. He participated in numerous solo and group exhibitions, including the Radoslav Putar Award exhibition and Salon Galic in Split in 2020, Known Unknowns at Westfall Aerospace in Leipzig in 2019, HT Award Show at Zagreb Museum of Contemporary Art in 2018.
Yes.
An exhibition in Tokamachi Community Center in Japan in 2018, and several editions of the Biennial of Painting in Zagreb. Damir attended residency programs in Belgium and Germany, including New York, and also worked as an associate professor at the Department of Fine Arts and Graphic Design at the Graphic School of Arts in Zagreb. So Damir, this show looks very beautiful. I love how you elevated the space and highlight its uniqueness. I think I want to first start talking about your lineage and to make a connection to the abstract art in Croatia, your home country. The first programmatic appearance of abstract painting on the Croatian and Yugoslav art scene, according to art historical literature, is associated with the exhibition by 4 painter members of Exat 51 group who mounted their show in 1953. And I would like for you to speak about how you understand your own lineage and what are the movements, maybe artistic collectives or individual artists in your region who might have helped you to decide to work on with geometric abstraction. And in other words, how did you get interested in abstraction, and when did you realize that it's going to be your main visual language that you communicate?
First, thank you for a nice introduction, and hello everyone. And yes, I could say that Croatia has a really big heritage of geometric art, and for me, it started much more before my academy years. I even did this geometric art earlier through school. And when I came to the college, when I came to the academy, I was introduced with this abstract movement that started around in 50s with a group called Exat 51, and it was for me just maybe one push to do it even more, because I had how do you say, much more I was much more sure in that what I was doing with this background that we have. Exat 51, it's a sort of experiment atelier, and it's started at with like a form where it consists with painters, also with other intellectuals in not just the art field. There were also Well, it is art. It was like architects, also designers, and maybe some kind of a theater performance. So it was a really big group of people that get together and try to do this completely new movement, you know, that was against that time in the 50s, against that socialist realist, you know, that was much more in every museum or gallery, and this movement was like some kind of a statement against this kind of expressions.
And I guess without Exat 51, there wouldn't be New Tendencies movement in the 60s, and groups like Gorgona.
Yes,
right?
yes. There were all these new movements, but especially New Tendencies and Exat 51. Well, New Tendency was maybe 10 years after, but in that time, we could say that Zagreb was really on the map of art scene in Europe. It started really early, and you could find those kind of movements through the world. But this one was really like, it was 51, so it was really early, and I think it brought completely new dimensions of viewing the artwork and making it, of course, because the main role was on experiment. So this experiment could be maybe some kind of different technique, or maybe to implement completely new things into the art. For example, computer programs at that time. So yes, it was a fun time, I think. And also today, if you see my practice, you could say that has a heritage of that, of course. And I think in the future that this practice will be always recycling and studying with new artists.
Coming to New York over the last 8 weeks, I wonder how was New York a productive background for you to reflect on what you've been doing before? Or
definitely and also I have this privilege that I got a studio here. It was a surprise because I didn't know that I will have a studio. So because of that and because of time that I had and space, I did these works that you can see in the gallery. I will show you them later. And also I could experience this market that is just consuming, you know, artists and galleries, and it's so fast that you cannot even trace it. If I compare it to Zagreb, which is like so small in the scene, you know, it's miniature if you compare it to this kind of way of living art through the market and galleries.
Right. So shall we look at the works more closely now?
Of course. Well, you already saw this thing that I was showing. It's Ceregraphy Prince. It is a map that consists of 11 sheets, and I did it just before I came here in New York with Gallery S, and we made that silk screen, and it was also made in a way that the serigraphy was made 50 years ago in Zagreb, when we talk about Zagreb Serigraphy School, which was also really influential in the 60s, where, well, if you know the serigraphy print, it's one of the oldest way of printing techniques, and in serigraphy, the, how do you say, sketch, we can say sketch is the same as the final product. So in the serigraphy, you don't have this originality through process or different techniques. So it's more like the author of the work is identifying only through form. So it's really simple. And in 60s, a lot of artists from Exat 51 did this kind of serigraphy maps. And well, I can name few of them, maybe Seder, Richter, and Kniefer. Later, there was also this kind of serigraphy map. And when we talk about the term school, Zagreb School of Serigraphy, it's not a school like an institution. It's more like a
movement.
Movement. Yeah, it's like a tribe, you know, and a legacy that will was now that stayed.
So these maps, why the term of map is important in this context of organizing the series of
map, it's not like geographical maps, it's more like
right.
a map. We say it when you say like when you have a body of work, for example, some prints, or if you, for example, apply on the school and you bring some works, it's called a map. So it is like consists of more than one paper or 3 or 5. So it's a body of work. And also the map was made, you can see it also in my kind of process. So each sheet can be different work, and also they can relate one to another through the setup of or the composition of the exhibited work. So one work can be sustained on its own, or it can function as a whole, let's say, map.
But do you see the order is always the same, or can the order change as well?
Order
as far as the sequencing of works.
Yes, order can definitely change, because this abstract work is especially geometric abstract work. It's more like it looks like a puzzle, and it can be changed in different exhibition. And I also do this kind of objects and paintings that can change their composition, because it is for me it's fun way of approaching in that context. I do it just to have fun, and for me it's more interesting.
So speaking of puzzles, and you also have sculptures on view.
Yes.
And I have some images of your previous paintings that I'd like to talk more about, but because these are exactly those modular structures that can be aligned. They seem like to align through this like perfectly planned angles. Yes. And in terms of scale, I wonder if you, what exactly intrigues you in this search for in creating a series of objects that then compose an enclosed system. Yeah. It could be rearranged, but still they relate to each other with like under specific like terms and mathematical rules.
Yeah, in this work particular, I wanted to make shaped canvas work, but I couldn't make it. I didn't want to make it just one shaped canvas alone. I wanted to describe it to myself. How did I come to this shaped canvas? And so I started with the painting on the left, and the motif of the painting is like imaginable cube with this how do you say it, base. You can see the base of the, let's say, cube, imaginable cube. These two bases. So this is
the
the
gray
motif.
areas.
Yeah, this is the motif that I did, and then in the next canvas that it's on the right bottom, I took the motif as the painting, as the whole, and then on the last one, where is just the white one, I took it more. So it's like a systematic sequence of the works. So I didn't know the result at the end. I didn't know how it will work at the end, but when I painted the first one, I knew it. You know, it was defined by the first painting. So
is your practice in general require like a lot of mathematical knowledge? You know, the math background.
It looks like that. It looks like that, but I don't use this mathematics. Maybe I use more like this kind of algorithm. I know when I will finish my work, when it's the beginning and the end of my work, and I don't have this situations where something can surprise me. You know, maybe in the last years that I do with this works, you will see this object with paper that I peel. Maybe I have some kind of situations that surprise me, but I always control the work from beginning to the end.
So let's look closer at the sculptures.
So yes, these objects, yeah, they're made from paper, cardboard. They're found cardboard on the streets of New York, and I glued the paper on the surface of the object, and then I painted the paper. And maybe you cannot see it, maybe you have a better photo, but this is the peeled paper, and the main motif is only just to show a technique. What am I using? Because I didn't, you know, this is also an experiment that I did here. I didn't know what will I do, and through the process, through the talking with people, they were all curious about my technique. How am I doing these works? And yeah, this is the good photo that you show now. You can see the paper that is peeled off. So this motif was more. It was more just to suggest the line. You see the line inside of the object. So playing with these shapes was more like playing with the outline that you can also see in this Ceregraphy Prince, and I did it also in this object. So it's a play of outline that goes into the motif of the form.
I also like the tension between the precision and like a portion of unpredictability, because the very like gesture of like pulling, tearing off the paper, it doesn't let you to completely control.
Yeah, usually I don't do this kind of things, but here I did it just to show more the technique, how it was done. You know, usually I don't do it, but now I did it. I always prefer more clean lines and no situations that can surprise me.
Like in your other paper collages, and let's see, maybe the palindromes are represented in this like very specific.
Yeah, this is also paper. It's difficult to see it from this photo, but it is a paper that is glued on canvas, and this is the first of the palindrome series that I did. It is just a game of composition color and shapes, but it was done in the way that I did only one side of the painting, and what I cut from the papers, the positives and negatives, I glued it on the other side. So the left and the right side could be symmetric, but they're not. You can, you know, it's a little bit asymmetric, and then that is also on the viewer of the painting, you know, just if he wants to play with these objects and all, I mean these forms, he can try to find these asymmetric situations through viewing the composition.
Exactly, and you're right that this tiny image on screen doesn't give a service to this work. It's like 1
because
meter
it's also
by 3 meters long.
maybe
I'll show, like, just to give an idea of the scale.
Yes.
You work with. That's a photo of you installing the exhibition for Radoslav Puter Award last year.
Yeah, but these works appeal to the other senses as well, not just visual. You know, it's also for the touch. It's tactile, but I cannot say to people go and touch paintings, but it is a little bit, you know, it invites you a little bit to try it, to touch it, because it's in a person, it's more like some kind of a tapestry or more like a carpet. And also when I'm doing this kind of work, especially these big paintings that I did, it's not much about painting. It's more like constructing the, it's more, it's like architectural model type. It's like I'm building some kind of model with papers, you know. Because there are no brushes here that I use. It's only like constructing the image with these fragments.
So
also, you can see the objects here on the right side. They are also made with paper. It's a cardboard that I painted, and then I just stacked them one on top of each other with in different sizes. Yes. Oh yes, yeah, that's it. So it's just stacked paper one on top of each other, and it resembles the same outline that I was talking with these object forms and this serigraphy prints. So yeah, I'm in this last few years, I'm just playing with this outline and what can happen if I implement the same outline into the object and what shapes and will come up, you know. It's a play. It's just a play with forms.
And what about the introduction of color? So these are very colorful compared to the monochrome show we have currently of you at Residency Unlimited.
They were on the same exhibition at Lauba in 2019, and the space where I exhibit them, I always think about space where the works will be exhibited, and that space always defines the works that I will do. You know, the size, dimensions, the color. It's really big, and I did these black and white paintings just to dance that colors that are surrounding those space. But the small ones were really small if you compare it to the big paintings that are 3 meters with 3 meters, and these small ones are, you can see it's like 40 centimeters. That's less than 2 feet. And with color, you know, I could give him a little bit more power into this dialect between them and paintings.
And they were also exhibited on a custom fabricated plinth, right? You told me earlier.
This pedestal, yeah, this pedestal is also made. My father helped me a lot with this pedestal. He's a master, so I can ask him for help when I need. So I'm thankful for that. And I did a pedestal in the same dimensions as the object itself. So maybe you cannot see it on these photos, but its depth is really close. It's like 5 centimeters. Yeah, you can see it here on the right. So the object goes into the pedestal, and vice versa. And it's like the question also that Brancusi was asking himself, where did the object is starting? Is it the pedestal part of the object?
Very cool. Let's move to your to the projection that you have in the space on your and I can pull the.
Do you see me?
Yes.
You see me. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see myself. Okay, we're watching this video now.
Correct.
So also in this pop-up show that I did here, I did this GIF projection. It's a small GIF projection of the same works that we are seeing here on the wall as a Ceregraphy Prince. So if I did it just to, I did this GIF just to help the viewer, the spectator that will come, just to see my idea of manifestation of these forms and objects. It's some kind of metamorphosis of the object, but it's not metamorphosis. It's more like a sequence thing. Because of that I call this show sequence, because
there's almost like this causal relationship, right? That like one form leads to another, cause and effect.
Yeah, one leads to another. And it's funny because the serigraphy is one of the oldest print making techniques in the world, and we have it here made of serigraphy prints, and then we have it here on a computer. So we have these two opposites of past and the future showing the same work.
There is also an interesting component of time that you mentioned before, because these projections have different speed. We are watching one that is slower now, right? In the gallery space, you're able to view these sequences on two different speeds.
Yes, this one is faster. So we have one faster and one slower, but this is only that the computer suggests us, you know, but I was hoping and trying, and I'm doing this in my art, where I want to suggest time with these forms, you know, and because of that, I'm doing this, I'm doing my work in this systematic way of thinking, where can one shape easily change into another, and this changing of a shape can also interpret time passing by.
Yeah, this also reminds me again about things that happened in the Croatian art scene in the 60s. Vladimir Bonacic, right, the well-known like computer artist and cybernetician who used machines, right, and suggested the possibility of incorporating like purpose-built software to create
different lights.
Artwork.
Yes, and that is all about experimenting with different medias, because you always have an idea how to make something, but if you change the material on the same idea, that can open the whole new world for you. And maybe the idea will be much more, much better executed with different material.
Right.
You know? So because of that, I don't paint always. I started, but in my some works I use rope. I use rope as a material. You can see it here. So it's a clean form. It's a clean shapes. But I wanted to implement also this flow of time or movement, and especially movement. And with these ropes, I think I did it much more than do it with the paint. And also it's touches various senses. It's not just visual, it's also tactile. So it has a complete different energy. in the
Yeah,
room.
and what we see here on screen is also just part of this series, right? Because the
Yes,
whole
I have
series
it. I have them more. Yes.
they are in different, more like in a zigzag shaped
Yes.
object to create. Well, I also wanted to ask you, it's like thinking of like the harmonies between art and society. I wondered if you could speak about these murals that you created in 2017 at the Rebra Hospital, and there's another project that you implemented in 2018 in the urban space in Zagreb.
Yes. So the first one in a hospital was made. It was a great thing to support those to support how hospital looks like and waiting rooms. It's really sad, and people there are really, it's not a happy place. It's not a happy place. Yeah. So yeah, so they invited us to change those atmosphere, and I think with colors and shapes in this large scale, the room atmosphere completely changes. And I think if we make those people just a little bit better time waiting there, I think we did a good thing, a big thing.
Yeah,
and
well, at least, I think it's at least what you achieve with this work, like you articulate the space much better. If maybe like some synergy between the viewer and the artwork sounds too utopian, like the concrete result that comes from this is like this sharp articulation of the space, and it's a positive outcome too.
Yes, it's true. And also it's funny how this work on the right, sorry, this work on the right on the wall, it was made on a school. It's the elementary school in Zagreb that was also designed in that period of 60s, and the whole neighborhood also have this kind of buildings in that period. So you cannot see it on this photo, but also it's implemented that time of 60s and 70s and Moderna in Zagreb. So I think the space always interact with the work. It defines the work for me. I always use the surrounding space where I work and implement the works. So it's like a conversation between work and the space.
Yeah, like in this case, we have this beautiful conversation between the church ceilings and
this is beautiful space. Because of that, I put these works into a vertical position.
Highlight the work.
They could also be horizontal, and then they will look a little bit different. It's the same works, but if I put them horizontal, you would notice much more the motif that if you see the first one, the circle, it's on the down down line of the horizon.
Oh yes.
And then through the systematic way into the half, it goes on the up horizon. So it moves, the motif moves from down to the up, but you cannot see it here if it's on this setup. But if I put them horizontally, that will be much more how do you say, sorry for my English,
pronounced.
yeah, it will be much more pronounced, let's say, this movement of motif. But I did it like this because I wanted to interact with the space and the big ceiling and the windows. So I think it's much better to put it like this here.
Wonderful. So speaking of spaces and places, I know that part of your family, Damir, comes from Supetar. a town on the island of Vrac in the Adriatic Sea, whose like heritage goes back to the Middle Ages, with beautiful, stunning architecture and incredible nature. And I'm speaking to you from Dallas, and within 40 minutes of drive from me, where I live here, exists like a partial faithful replica of Supetar, the so-called Adriatica village of McKinney, Texas, which was built recently. There are some photos of the replica of the church and part of the square. So like my next two questions would like stem from this binary Supetar idea. You know, how there are real places and the imaginary places that are either inspired or in dialogue with the locations. First, I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about your childhood memories from this region where you where your grandparents lived, and how it influenced your visual thinking.
Well, that was the beautiful time, especially when I was a kid. I could go there for 3 months or 4 months a year. You know, that was really a long period of time to be there, just swim in the sea and play. It was really beautiful, and I prefer summer. I prefer sun. I'm much more a sun person. So yeah, for me that was one of the beautiful childhood and beautiful times spending there. And the thing that you mentioned, this Adriatica village in Texas, everybody in Supetar knows about it. It's famous because this love to the Supetar, you know, it's so beautiful, and people who live there really are so surprised and happy, especially happy that this thing exists in Texas, you know. And I was watching that, I don't know, a year or two ago. We couldn't believe, but we were really happy that someone was so much in love in our part of the world.
Yeah, the special, like the sun and the environment. Do you believe that this like genetic memory of Mediterranean, like the Adriatic Sea, can exist or like manifest itself in your work? For example, like I'm thinking of perception as like the key category, like the anchor in abstract art, and
maybe in some kind of way, I don't know, maybe in some kind of terms of colors, you know, and light, what you said, maybe in this particular ways, yes. But the forms are, I don't know, it's difficult to implement this kind of visual things from this region or any other region into my work, because I start on a different way of thinking of the artwork and the process of the work.
Sure. Well, the last question I have for you, Damir, is what are you planning to make in your studio upon your return to Zagreb from New York?
Oh,
you already?
Yeah, I'm planning to make some works, yes, with similar to these ones that I did here. It's I'm continuing in the same way, but I think I'm going to change the material and maybe play with some mirrors. I think that's maybe something new that I will try. But it's also, you know, it's an experiment. Every work is an experiment, and I like to have this kind of situation where I'm not on my, you know, safe ground, and that's I think this is the best way for every artist to explore, because through the process we are going to make something more and new for us, that we will with time examine through different works. And I think it's important to change mediums and to go in an unsecure position, you know?
Yes. Well, congratulations again on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. And yeah, this work definitely is like very timeless, and lends itself to multiple interpretations.
Yes.
And I like how you create this dialogue with movements that happened in your home country in the past, but also how you create the bridges with people who are more familiar with the American modernism.
Yes, that also influenced me, you know, a lot, especially in, I didn't go to art high school, I went to gymnasium. And then when I went to academy, I was introduced with this exact new tendency, and I was so happy. And on my first year, second year, I also get to know this American school of art and Frank Stella and Ad Reinhardt and all these guys. And it was beautiful. And I'm happy that I'm here now in New York, so I can see all those works in person in museums. So it also great experience for me.
Absolutely. Well, we're absolutely lucky to have you in New York at Residency Unlimited, and best of luck with your future project. We'll follow your next, your career. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.